5 o'clock, and I'm going to call the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors to order. At this time, we'll have invocation by Todd Strucker, Trinity Lutheran Church, Hudson. Will everybody stand, please?
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of Hudson Area Ministerial Association, thank you for allowing us to partner with you in serving our community. And in light of the happenings of this last weekend, I think it'd be appropriate for us to just have a moment of silence, thinking about the people in Texas and Ohio, and obviously other places that were affected. So let's have a moment of silence if we could. Dear Heavenly Father, putting our political positions, beliefs, differences aside, it's with heavy hearts that we come to you on behalf of the families of the victims of this past weekend's shootings in Texas, Ohio, other places. And even though we are miles away, we can echo what you say in your word, the Bible, that when one part suffers, all other parts suffers with it. And so we join our fellow Americans around the country in asking you for your peace and your comfort for those who are involved. For us, Lord, we ask that our attitudes be seasoned not with pride, but with humility, that our actions be grounded not in hate, but in love, and that our conversations be tethered not to the things that are useless, but to things that give life. Thank you, Father, for these men and women in front of us, who at their core calling is to serve the people in our fantastic community. Bless them. Give them your insight and wisdom for the tasks ahead this evening. It's in your name and in the name of your precious Son, Jesus, that we pray this. And we all said together, amen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Will everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Cindy, we ready for your roll call? Thank you. At this time, we're open for public comment for anything on or off the agenda. So if anybody has anything they want to talk about that's on or off the agenda.
Speak here.
Thank you. And you'll we'll only allow 3 minutes for public comment, just so you're aware of that.
I have a handout I'll pass around because maybe that'll save some time if I start talking. My name is John Kaczynski. I'm a defense attorney. I've been around here since '81. I've been in all the local jails, all the old ones, all the new ones, and I wanted to discuss the bonding issue of remodeling the gym in the jail to a mental health wing. The idea of spending $7 million or more on a structure, because I think building a structure itself doesn't solve the issue. The question is, why do we need that structure and what are the underlying issues? And I think jailers are all well-intended, but I don't think they're trained or qualified to be mental health professionals and to run it. If you look at the issues that are involved, damage and misbehavior in the jail, you'll find the vast majority of people that do the damage or involved in the misbehavior or don't have mental health diagnosis. I know you're showing various videos. Those videos are rare. They're not the rule. They're the exceptions to the rule. And the vast majority in jails are not dangerous or violent people. So when you look at this concept, the number one issue in the jail is boredom. People are bored. They have nothing to do. And if you take that gym out of there, they're gonna have less to do. And people get irritated. Sometimes there's racial issues, overcrowding, personalities, but number one problem is boredom. The second problem you run into is the inmates don't get their medications. If they don't get their medications for attention deficit, bipolar, schizophrenia, they don't get pain meds, antipsychotic meds, and they don't get therapy, they act out. Everybody's aware of that. The other thing I think you have to look at, you have a policy of charging $760 a month for Huber. That means if you're a poor person, you have to come up with $760 a month. They don't have it, then they sit. Then they're frustrated, lose their jobs. Other counties charge $400. Every county that surrounds you charges $400, not $760. The other thing, the district attorney has a policy of not authorizing electronic monitoring. Electronic monitoring is done by virtually every jail in the state. Pierce does it. They don't even have a Huber. Instead of Huber, you're on electronic monitoring. They have it in Eau Claire. All your sex offenders across the state on electronic monitoring. So I think that's something you should look at. Any given day, La Crosse has over 100 people out on electronic monitoring instead of jail. My question for you, have you consulted an independent psychologist, psychiatrist to see what is needed if you're going to open up a mental health wing in the jail? I haven't heard that you've done that. So I don't think spending $7 million or more building a structure solves the problem. I have to shut up now?
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Well, I asked you read the handout. I think that'll have my
Okay.
points.
Thank you so much. We're still open for public comment if anybody wants to talk about anything on or off the agenda. Public comment for anybody on or off the agenda? Last time, public comment on or off the agenda. Not seeing any more, we'll move forward. Thank you.
A point of order, Roger. Did you get John Krasinski's address? Is he living in St. Croix County?
I live at W9680 770th Avenue in River Falls. I've lived in St. Croix County before. I've practiced in St. Croix County since 1981.
The reason for the question is that if you stick around, you might be invited once again by any of the supervisors to continue your presentation. Okay?
Sure. Well, thank you.
We're down to our consent agenda. I need a motion to approve. Supervisor Peterson, second. Supervisor Hanson. We're open for discussion. Not seeing any. We have a motion, a second on the floor. We'll vote at this time. And that's all yeses. Thank you. At this time, we have presentations, and we have West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission report from Lynn Nelson, Executive Director.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Nelson, and I am the Executive Director of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. And I'm here tonight with Toby Lemahue, and we'd like to take just a few minutes of your time to cover a couple of items. I'm going to start off by providing you with a quick update on the Regional Planning Commission, who we are and some of the things that we've been working on in St. Croix County over the past year or so. And then I'm going to turn it over to Toby, and she's going to give you a quick update on the Regional Business Fund. The Regional Business Fund is a regional loan pool that's staffed by the Regional Planning Commission. So our goal in presenting this information to you is that you'll walk away with a better understanding of both of these organizations and how we can best continue to partner moving into the future. Before we move forward, I want to point out that you do have a packet of information in front of you that has information on the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Business Fund, as well as our business cards. Should you want to be in touch with us after the presentation, or really at any time if you want to talk about projects or have questions. So first, a little bit of information on our organization. The West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission is a multi-county planning organization that was established under state statute in 1971. We're one of 9 regional planning commissions that cover the state, and we cover 7 counties in West Central Wisconsin, obviously including St. Croix County. We're governed by a 21-member board that's made up of 3 representatives from each of our 7 counties. Our St. Croix County representatives include Judy Achterhoff, Dan Hansen, and Larry Weisenbeck. In addition to these individuals, other board members provide valuable input in addition to a staff of 14 that we have. Those are the people that really are our boots on the ground out in St. Croix County and provide technical assistance and often work either on providing small bits of advice to communities throughout the county or working side by side with county staff on larger projects. Our service categories that we offer to the county fall into 4 major areas, including economic development, transportation, community development, and then mapping and conservation. Over the past year, we've worked on a wide variety of projects in all of those areas, both regionally and in St. Croix County. While I can't cover all of the things that we've done, I just want to highlight 6 items that are good examples of the types of partnerships that we've established in working on different projects in the counties. Number 1, in 2018, we were designated by the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to administer a business disaster recovery program. Under that program, if there's a natural or man-made disaster anywhere in the region, we can secure funding through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to make 0% loans to businesses that need assistance. So in the recent storms that took place, we did request funding from WEDC, and we're hoping that that should be available within the next few days or few weeks. I think most of the damage was probably in Polk and Barron counties, but if any of the damage was in St. Croix County and you know of businesses that could use that type of assistance, the funds will be for up to $20,000 and repayment can occur over 2 years. So if you know of anyone who needs that help, send them our way. A second example is we're working on an update to the St. Croix County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Those plans are also important in the case of a natural disaster because they allow communities and individuals to become eligible for federal emergency management assistance. Number 3, we assisted Glenwood City in securing FEMA funds to construct a storm shelter on the St. Croix County Fairground, and that funding will be coming through shortly. Number 4, we assisted the City of River Falls, the River Falls Economic Development Corporation, and the University of Wisconsin River Falls in finishing up the administration for the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center, which opened up in April of 2018. We prepared a Safe Routes to School plan for the City of Hudson, and we assisted the Village of Woodville with follow-up to a placemaking event. There's other examples in your packet. In addition to that, I also want to point out one handout that's in the packet. We did include a housing snapshot in our packet for St. Croix County. Right now, as an organization, we're really doing a lot of housing work for communities in the region. Many areas, and I'm sure St. Croix County is the same, is experiencing some difficulties with housing, and businesses are saying they're having a hard time attracting workers because there isn't enough housing. So one of the efforts we've been focusing on is housing studies, and in Barron County, we did housing snapshots for each of the counties, and some of our other counties said, can you do that for us? So we did that, and we included that in your packet. So you can take a look at that. That's some basic housing information that might be of value to you as you're looking at some of your needs. So that's a quick snapshot of some of the things that we've been working on. If you have questions, you can maybe ask those at the end, but I'll turn it over to Toby right now so she can provide you with an update on the Regional Business Fund.
Okay, hi, I'm Toby Lemahue, and I, like Lynn said, work at the Regional Planning Commission exclusively on the nonprofit regional business fund side of things. So the nonprofit was created by the Regional Planning Commission to administer loans to businesses in that same 7-county region, obviously including St. Croix County. Our loan funds can be flexible and can be used for a variety of different things, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but the brochure that was in your packet provides a lot of information. You can also go to our website or contact me with any questions. So just a snapshot of St. Croix County impact that the Regional Business Fund has had. Since the consolidation of CDBG revolving loan funds 12 years ago, in St. Croix County, the Regional Business Fund has assisted 143 businesses, including 57 startups with over $10.4 million in financing. And the businesses have projected to create or retain 2,025 jobs. Some recent projects that we've assisted with providing loans to these businesses include Induce Sales and Services in Valley Cartage in Hudson, North Peak Chiropractic in the town of Hudson, Bazinga Enterprises in New Richmond, the Sears Hometown Store and Recharge Chiropractic in River Falls, and Oliphant Brewing, Somerset Sales and Leasing, and Stone and Leaf Landscaping, all in Somerset. In closing, I'd just like to recognize the valuable contributions of the residents of St. Croix County. We have 2 members from St. Croix County on the Regional Business Fund Board of Directors. One is here today, Dale Jorgensen. He is right here, and I just wanted to have him stand up. So thanks to Dale. And Barbara Butler is our other representative on the Board of Directors. We also have a loan committee that is comprised of members of St. Croix County too. 7 people sit on that loan committee. They are Jason Bast, Shane Bauer, Mark Benton, Susie Coram, Josh Linseth, Sue Lund, and Paul Wenzel. So again, without those individuals, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So I wanted to thank them. So also I almost forgot, a big thanks to Bill Rubin, the St. Croix County EDC director. He's also kind of our boots on the ground in marketing to businesses that he works with about our loan program. So a thank you to him as well. So with that, we would be open to taking any questions.
Do I have any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for your report this evening. Thank you. This time we'll go into our annual reports. The Highway Department Head, Robbie.
Good evening. You all have the attached report. I'm glad to answer any questions that you have. I'd also like to take this opportunity to announce that we have scheduled the Baldwin Highway Facility Open House for September 21st from 9 to 1. So we're hoping that if all of you could make it that morning, that'd be great. It's a Saturday morning. So with that, if there's any questions on our annual report, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Robbie? Not. Supervisor Schulberg.
So yeah, you're about to open up. Could you remind us of the sustainable features of the building and then also the sources of energy that the building will be using there? So first of all, the sustainable, because I know we've done quite a bit there.
Absolutely. So a number of the building products, and I apologize, I don't remember the exact number offhand, but it will be in the pamphlet, were made from recycled products. We utilized low energy and LED fixtures throughout the entire facility. We have automatic switches on off, basically on all the light switches and light features within the facility as well. So we have automatic on and off. We utilize low energy appliances where we could. We also have a wash system that utilizes low use water. For a short term, we couldn't implement the rain harvesting system because of because some of the inner workings of the water system within the car wash. So that is set up for the future though. The building is also compatible and fully ready for geothermal heating and cooling. We ran the cost and the efficiency numbers. At this time, the facility couldn't pay for itself as a geothermal facility, but it is fully geothermal ready with the heating and cooling system that's there. We also allowed space for the well fields so that if there's a shift in energy costs in the future, the county is well prepared to capture those savings with a geothermal system that could be installed readily. So currently we utilize propane and electricity for the entire facility. That is our 2 heating and cooling systems. We also have a full generator system to help accommodate also as we are the backup emergency operations center. It's a diesel generator that we can fully operate independently. So if the grid went down and the gas system went down, we can operate independently for an extended period of time.
Just to follow up on the geothermal, what was the installation price that we couldn't quite cover there? Was it over $1 million?
I can't remember the exact numbers, but that's also something I can get to you in a report if you're interested. I don't remember. We ran the calculation in the life of the system. We couldn't pay back on the well installs, and some of our building isn't as challenging for geothermal. Some of our big doors and other areas don't feed well into geothermal. Geothermals like steady state. Our admin area would be a good accommodation, as well as some of our shops with some of the big overhead doors and the amount of exits and entrances. We'd have to have makeup air heat regardless of the situation. So some of those areas there was a lower payback than if we had more of a confined building with less penetrations.
Thanks.
Supervisor Octroff.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit more to the other board members the benefits involving the salt and brine system with the new facility?
Certainly. So the new facility is a big step forward for us as we battle winter. Our salt costs continue to rise. The inflation cost this year was 6%. So we are looking at different ways, and Wisconsin is, as a state, is starting to move forward to more liquid application of anti-icing agents. So our facility, for the first time, will be able to produce liquid anti-icing agents. At a minimum, I'll spare you the details. It's a cost savings, as well as under certain temperatures and conditions creates a much more effective system for us to battle the winter elements as ice and other components of winter. So we'll finally have some tools. You'll start to see some of our maintenance trucks change. We will add more liquids to them to help us battle winter, and it'll also be a cost savings. At a minimum, we're going to be using less salt. The best example I can give, a truck going 45 miles an hour, dropping coarse rock salt, about 40 to 60% of that will enter the ditch. So with the liquid application, we can reduce that down significantly and keep the stay on. We can put less salt on the road and be more effective.
Supervisor.
Just a quick question. How many miles of county roads do we have to maintain?
We have approximately 350 centerline miles of county highway, so give or take about 700 lane miles. We also maintain about another 650 state lane miles and another 1,200 town partner lane miles. So give or take, it's about 2,400 total lane miles that we maintain.
And given the chart that reflected the number of miles, the goal for the number of miles to maintain in different ways over the coming years, do you think those goals are all achievable given the money that's available?
Yes and no. So the chip seal, the seal coat, my predecessor had a little different goal in mind. As a straight numerical, I do not believe in that when it comes to a seal coat. I believe in a different type of maintenance. I believe in applying the method where the method is required. So we're going to move less on seal coat to being a numerical and applying it, in my opinion, at a little different rate in better areas to try to better serve our money. There's no sense throwing good money after bad roads. So we are really hit now with inflation. Our 19 inflation for hot mix was over 10%. So we've also been tasked with two of the toughest winters that I remember. So we did have to make some accommodations in the budget. These last 2 years, we had to pave less and plow more. So, but yes, hopefully we'll take a step in a better direction in 2020 with hopefully a reduced winter.
Tatum.
Can you tell me what the pilot program for invasive weeds is?
Certainly. So we are in year 2 of a pilot program for invasive weeds. If you travel St. Croix County, you've noticed, and one in particular is wild parsnips, which is prevalent all along our state corridors. We've taken a more aggressive approach on the county system. The state has not came along yet as far as being a partner in invasive species. What we've applied is a spray to help combat the wild parsnip. Mowing is somewhat ineffective for us because of the amount of mileage we have to cover. We have a short window in which we can apply it. So year 2, what we've done is we applied a retardant and then a couple chemicals that are in particular target some of these invasive species. So what we're doing is trying to, one, eliminate our top mow, which is our first mow every year to reduce our costs, and then also use the spray to help reduce the seeding of the wild parsnip. It's been very effective in year 2. We applied it at about $120 per lane mile, per lane mile. So it's much lower than our mowing costs. So if we can eliminate a top mow and aggressively combat these wild invasive species, it's a good program.
Can you tell me what the chemicals are?
I can get you that list.
That'd be great, thank
Okay.
you.
And no other questions?
No, I just want to make a comment that I think the highway department should be commended for coming in $1 million under budget on that new facility by taking on some of the work themselves, as far as hiring out for the contracts. So I think $1 million under budget is very welcome.
Thank you. No other questions? Robbie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to County Surveyor Annual Report, Brian Hawley.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to share, update some of the activities that we've been involved in. And for any of you that don't know me, I'm Brian Hawley, County Surveyor, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the annual report or any other County Surveyor activities.
Supervisor Hanson.
Now, some people might think that you don't have an exciting job, but I find it fascinating. So I'm wondering if you'd give a couple of words about your interaction with the vital records and the land use department in community development, because it's critical what you do and how you interact, and most people just have no idea. So if you don't mind, I don't put you on the spot, but
well, no,
it's kind of alluded to in the report.
Actually, these days, the community development department keeps us, along with the local surveyors, keep us plenty busy. We actually do all of the technical review on any of the surveys that are submitted in the county. Check that they are, compliant with statutes and whatnot prior to the community development department actually approving the maps. So we have an integral part along with community development department. And along with that, during our review process, we create an AutoCAD drawing of each map, and then that map is then used by community development department and our mappers to place in to build our parcel mapping from that, so we're not duplicating efforts. So yeah, that's just a couple examples of how we integrate with community development department.
Okay.
And my point in asking that question is that they've developed efficiencies that save the county taxpayer a lot of money and improve services. So thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Dan.
Any other questions? Supervisor Octorov.
How much do they use, okay, now the word just went out of my mind. What are the the drones that go by? Can they use those at all for, I don't want to take anybody's job away, but are they used at all for surveying because they're up above and?
Right. Actually, yeah, that technology is there, and some of the local firms, actually, at one of them that I know of has invested in a drone, and they do it not so much for, highly precise things such as we do with section corners and government corners and such, but they do use them for topographic mapping, say stockpiles and whatnot, and so they can fly it and create topo maps at just a fraction of the cost of what it would take for the manpower to do the same thing, and obviously much less time too. So
Just was curious. Thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing, the technology since I first started. So.
Any other questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next one is the Register of Deeds, Beth Paps.
Good afternoon. I don't come and see you guys very often. Our office is just kind of quietly out there, kind of doing our job. The one thing that we kind of think about is that the Register of Deeds office is charged with managing all of the official public record for real estate records and for vital records such as births, deaths, marriages. Basically, it's often considered the foundation of government. Without the Register of Deeds office, we have no property ownership, no zoning, no community development, no treasurer's office and taxation, no county board districts. So it's just kind of fascinating, and beyond that, there's no private industry, no banks, no loans, not a lot of things out there that exist without the foundation of county government, but the land records and vital records. That being said, the report's in your packet. Any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions? Thank.
Did you, a couple years ago, you were doing all the redactions and electronic transferring from paper records. Did you get all that done?
Yep, we feel that we at this time have all images within our department, both the land records and the vital records. They're all backed up and digitized. They are not all indexed at this point in time. We have a fairly complete index back to about 1935 with all the redaction. There's just a few little gaps that we kind of have to fill in.
I never asked this question. I should have. What is it that you were redacting?
So in 1935, our government enacted Social Security. We all had Social Security numbers. So when we became, I think it started probably in the 90s at some point in time when you went and got a new mortgage, or sometimes when you filed a power of attorney or a termination of interest if your loved one passed away and you had to remove their name from the property. A lot of those documents have Social Security numbers on. So it was, and those still exist in the paper world in our offices. But when we moved to an electronic world where we're putting all of this data out onto the internet for people to access from their homes, it was felt that it was time that we needed to redact the Social Security numbers from any images that show on the internet in the public record. So that's what we were redacting.
Thank you.
Anything
Any
else?
other questions? Thank you, Beth.
Thanks so much, guys.
Next, our County Veterans Service Office, Philip Podgraf.
Good evening. I want to thank the board and I want to thank the county for all the resources they provide to our office. Also the veteran service organizations in St. Croix County, as well as the great staff that I have in Jerry and Kathy. I think that St. Croix County, the Veteran Service Office is doing great things. I really do. Judy stopped by our office a while back and she said, this is something that you should bring up to the county board. So I'm going to take this opportunity, so just 1 minute. We're scanning, we're scanning our files. We've scanned roughly half of our files already. In doing this, we're saving our county money. There's a lot of other counties that farm this out, so I would say that this is easily $80,000 if it were to be farmed out. So we're doing that all in-house. We raised the overall dollars, federal dollars, to St. Croix County last year, $1.5 million. We raised a van, again, with the help of our veteran service organizations around the area. We returned $500,000, more than $500,000 in the veteran property tax credit from the state of Wisconsin. In May 2020, we're going to be having a Veterans Benefits Expo to try to get other people the services that they may not know about. And also, we're working with other county entities to, like the DA, CJCC, to try to bring a veterans diversion program here. So we're going to try to keep doing these things, and thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for me?
Supervisor Peterson.
Hopefully you might know the answer to this. My son made me aware of a lot of states on the driver's license will list you as a veteran. And so I had just recently renewed mine. I thought, well, okay, I might as well list myself. Well, it said I wasn't qualified. So I'm wondering what the definition the state's definition of a
That's a
veteran is.
good question. That's a good question. It sounds like you should be coming to my office too. So you have to have a DD 214 discharge paper, as a matter of fact, and there's a form. It's a WDVA form 2241. And you have to send that to the state of Wisconsin, and then they're actually the determiner of that benefit. We can also have you come into our office and do it right there, but there has to, it has to be clear, slam dunk, home run, you know, active duty service. Otherwise, we're going to be sending that to the state of Wisconsin, and then they're going to make the determination. They'll send you an email, or they'll send you a letter in the mail to you. Now, here's the real, to answer your question, you might be eligible for it, but you have to apply for it. So if you haven't applied for it through our office and you check mark the little box in the DMV forms, you're not going to get veteran on your driver's license. You have to come in first and have to apply for it. I've seen, this has had a lot of traffic in our office because of these, so.
Supervisor
Thank you.
Osmus.
Nope, not going anywhere.
Phil, do you want to talk just a little bit about the new program that you and Mike and CJC is?
Yeah, we're in the
is
process
attempting?
of squaring that away. We're just trying to look to bring a diversion type of program for veterans. You know, in general, how that works is when they're identified as a veteran, then they will be working with the Minneapolis VA Medical Center and also the DA's office. They actually have a liaison through the VA, a VJO, who will be talking with the DA or the DA's office, as well as the people who are providing the treatment over in Minneapolis. So this is obviously, I think, a very good thing, twofold. One, it's going to take some of the stress and the dollars off of St. Croix County again, and it's going to be going towards the federal government. But two, I would also argue that it's kind of specific to the veteran. So you know, the veteran is going to be getting treatment from the VA people who are there for them. So it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. And I'm hopeful that we can get that up and going. I know that there's been a lot of work at the DA's office, as well as the CJC and the judges. We've been doing a lot of work on this. So.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Actually, Dave just asked more or less the question I was going to ask about the Veterans Court. But one, Phil, I think you had a very interesting anecdote you might want to share with the group about you and the district attorney helping a vet. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Okay,
I
well
can't
then
remember. It must have been a good one.
We'll pass on that one, but you guys did a great job.
Okay.
Okay, the second question was what's the percentage of our county employees that are veterans, and are there any goals that have been established, and what are we doing to work toward it?
Good question. I was actually approached by HR, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I do believe it is a little bit below what our target is. I believe that we wanted a 7%. I believe that we're a little bit below that. But just so you know as well, the jail has contacted me, and I have been referring veterans who are either returning, who come to our office, who I think are great candidates, and then we're going to try to get them in the jail, start them there, start them on the ground floor level, start them at a good paying job, and work them up. And if they have the ability and the desire, they could also potentially be a sheriff or more. So we've been referring quite a few people to the jail's office as well. So we're trying to do everything that we can. But to answer your question, I don't know if there has been any tangible goals of how much how many veterans we're trying to hire. That might be better for HR to answer. I think that they're looking at it, and we're certainly starting to do some things as well.
That's all the questions I had for Phil, but maybe I could just ask the county administrator at a future meeting to share information on that with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move forward to our county administrator report, financial report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, just going to briefly say that I've looked at all the committees and departments for revenues and expenditures. This represents half of year 6 months of expenditures and revenues in all the departments are within that, give or take 50% for revenues and expenditures. The only one that did not show that was for expenditures for administrative services, and that's because of the library. The 1.1 million in the library expenditures is fully expensed out rather than portioning it out month by month. So that drives up the level of expenditures to about 60%. But without that, it would be within the 50% threshold. You also have a summary of the capital improvement plan for 2019 through 2020. And just as a reminder, we have a committee of the whole meeting on Monday at 9 a.m. and we'll be reviewing next year's capital improvement plan. We also received word from the State Department of Revenue this past week for our net new construction increase. It's 2.74%, which will create some additional capacity within the 2020 budget as we begin preparing that. Our net new construction figure was the highest in the state of Wisconsin of all 72 counties. So that tells you how busy Beth has been and Ellen and some of the other departments. So anyway, that's good news. It creates additional capacity, but we're also looking at some pretty big expenditures coming in for 2020 as well. So it's going to be a very, very tight budget. That's it for my report,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Not seeing any. We'll move into the business items. The first one is the appointment of County Board Supervisor for District 14. And we only had one person. I'll have Greg Telejohn step up to the podium and tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll vote on.
Good evening, good afternoon, whatever. I don't like to talk about myself, so I think everybody received my application. It says pretty much what I wanted to say. Just wanted to make a note that I've been in the St. Croix County and Aaron Prairie for 40 years plus, I guess. I believe in service to my community, and as I mentioned in the application, I served on the Enrichment School Board for 11 years, on the county board for a couple of years, filling out a position when there was 31 board members, which was pretty unwieldy. This looks a lot more manageable. And all the meetings would run 4 or 5 hours, so I couldn't run a business and be on the board, so I didn't run for re-election. But I'm a small business owner here in Hudson. And as the supervisor for my district, I think I can be an asset to St. Croix County. I believe in setting policies and governments with the ability to listen to all discussions and make decisions that benefit the most people in St. Croix County. So, any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Greg? Supervisor Hanson.
As a business owner, are you involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and for how long have you been involved with that?
I've been a member of the Enrichment Chamber of Commerce and the Hudson Chamber of Commerce, so I've been in business 19 years, so I've been in chambers for about that long, I guess. I feel like I have a handle on a couple communities in the county.
Okay. Thank you. Not seeing any other. I need a motion to approve Supervisor Schoberg, seconded by Supervisor Malik. Any discussion? We have a motion, a second on the floor. So I don't see any discussion. We will vote at this time. That's all yes. Welcome aboard. You can take your seat.
It was a tight race.
We have to take a short recess so Cindy can get all his paperwork done. So we'll take probably, you want 5 minutes or 5 minutes? We'll take a short break. Coming up is initial resolution authorizing the issuance of a $8.25 million general obligation bond or promissory note. I need a motion. Supervisor Peterson, I need a second to that. Supervisor Astor, second it. It's open for discussion and conversation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment to introduce the topic. It does not probably need much of an introduction. This is a resolution coming in front of you from the Administration Committee authorizing the issuance of $8,025,000 of general obligation bonds for construction in the St. Croix County Corrections Facility and the ancillary mechanical and HVAC equipment to upgrade the corrections facility and the government center. This is identical to a resolution that you had in front of you at a prior board meeting, with the exception that the $400,000+ for the emergency communications vehicle has been removed from the bond issuance, and it will be placed in a future capital improvement plan and funded through the general means of funding the capital improvement plan. In fact, it'll be in the plan that you see on Monday at the Committee of the Whole meeting. So the Committee on Administration has seen this. They have approved it. The Public Protection and Judiciary Committee has also been briefed on it. They did not take action on it, but it has been in front of them. And then also in your packet, you have a copy of a letter from the presiding judge, Judge Scott Needham, who chairs the Community Justice Coordinating Council. The council at their last meeting has also taken this up and passed a motion of support. And so there was a letter in your packet from Judge Needham as well. Judge Needham is here this evening. I don't think he plans on speaking, but he will be able to answer any questions if you have any. Sheriff Scott Knutson is here this evening. Under Sheriff Kathy Borschatz is also present, and I believe they have a very short presentation to present some information to the board that was not available at our last meeting. So at this time, I'd call on, with the respect of the chair and the board, Sheriff Scott Knutson.
Thank you, Administrator Thompson. Thank you, Chair Larson. A couple things I think I'd like to address tonight, and I know we've had this discussion for some time now and discussed several of the topics that are really plaguing the jail right now. I think it's appropriate. I wasn't going to delve into it too much, but I don't know if I have any other alternative than to maybe respond to some of what was brought up in the public comment, only because you all received a handout that has some things in there that I do not believe are appropriate or are a bit misleading. And that'll be the blue paper that you were handed, if I may, Mr. Chair. Let me start by saying I respect Mr. Kaczynski very much. He's been in this system for, boy, I was pretty young when he got into this. He has seen the goods, he has seen the bads, and I know that this is probably an issue that he has dealt with for many, many years in several different counties, so no disrespect on my part intended whatsoever, but I do need to respond to a couple of these. I'm just going to go to that first bullet point on the boredom portion. We have volunteer hours, and some of these things were also discussed during my year-end report last December, but some of the things, when we discussed boredom, nothing to do in the jail, there are several things that, if the inmates choose to do so, can fill their time. They can go to the library. We have visiting that is now a home wave system where they can do it from their day room, so they can do that anytime from when they get up in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, so they can utilize those, something we haven't had in the past. They can rent out some tablets. They can take those to their cells. They can listen to music. They can search very selected sites on the internet, something that they hadn't had in the past. Obviously, there's a TV in there. There's games, card games. Volunteers come into the jail. We have programs. Last year, we had 72 volunteers come into the jail throughout the year, for a total of 1,663 volunteer hours that were donated to the jail. There are opportunities for the inmates to get out of their cells, to interact, to gain education, to practice their religion, whatever it might be. There are opportunities for them to do things. Failure to give inmates medication. Now, we contract through a company called WellPath. They utilize, or they do and handle our mental health person that comes in, the nurse, the doctor. Through them, we have those contracted employees that come in. They are the ones that recommend, approve, hand out medications. The jail staff assist them, but we do not decide whether an inmate gets medications or not. That I think we'll all agree on. They are not doctors, our jail staff. They are there to assist with the health and well-being of the inmates. So while some inmates do not get their medications, it may be as a result of those medications are narcotics, and those are not allowed in the jail. And the medical staff and doctor try to find the equivalent in a non-narcotic form. So while there is some truth that what they come in with they may not get, it isn't as a result of punishment or that we just do not give them their medications. They do their very best to try to facilitate something similar. You know, I'm not going the failure to use Huber cells, failure to use electronic monitoring. I don't believe that's any discussion for tonight. The report program. I do have the video, and I'll get to that in a minute. I know that Mr. Kaczynski says that's the exception, not the rule. I'm probably going to refer back to that a couple times, that while these incidences I'm showing on the video, it's really just, I won't even call it a highlight reel, but it is a highlight reel because they are the most, over the past year, the things that have probably caused the most damage that were on video that we could show. The rule, not the exception, is that we deal with mental health issues every day. We deal with those with substance abuse issues every day. That is the rule. I just had 2 more staff get hurt several days ago. One's on light duty right now, fighting with an inmate that then had to be chaptered down to Winnebago again. Happened just this week. 11 times in 2018 we had work comp claims, some minor, some not so minor, all as a result of struggling, fighting, attempting to restrain inmates within the jail. Exception to the rule, I'm in that jail every day. That staff is in that jail every day. They deal with this on a daily basis. Are they attacked every day? No. I think that's a good thing they're not attacked every day. But there are opportunities when they are around those in mental health crisis, substance abuse issues, that day to day, they have to be on their toes. And these guys end up being counselors. They are not psychiatrists, but they end up counseling these inmates. they're talking to them off to the side, they're talking them off the ledge, they're talking them from fighting somebody else. And they do a good job of that, but you can only ask so much. And we continue to ask more and more of that jail staff, and the jail staff have one of the most difficult jobs in the county, bar none. More than patrol, we have a dangerous job on patrol. But there's a constant sense of heightened security when we're in the jail. I can't stress that enough, and until you've worked there or been through it, no explanation will suffice anybody that hasn't been in there. I've got a couple things. Wisconsin DOC, the Performance Measurement Series of 2017, this was put out, mental health within the prison system, 30% of the males have a mental health condition, 84% of females have a mental health condition. That was put out by Wisconsin Department of Corrections. Well, they didn't start in the prison, they started in the jail. And each jail had to put up with the crises, the location. Right now we have no place to put many that are suffering from a mental health crisis. I know this keeps being referred to as a mental health wing. That, to me, discusses that it's a hospital. It is not a hospital. It is merely housing while they're in the jail. Again, I can't stress enough that our jail does not house solely mental health individuals. They house individuals that have committed or are accused of committing a crime. They're going through the judicial process, and they happen to have an illness that is either a substance abuse or a mental health illness. We don't just incarcerate in our jail because of a sickness. That comes in as part of the crime. There's talk of losing the gym. While not an ideal situation to lose the gym, there are other avenues, as I mentioned, for the inmates to get out of their cells, do other things. Mr. Chair, if I may, in the audience tonight is also our state jail inspector, Brad Hoover. And if I could bring him up, he could answer any questions that any of the county board members have or concerns about losing the jail. What are there for alternatives? What are other jails doing? And I believe it's probably beneficial to bring in somebody that sees many jails, that doesn't maybe have just our jail in mind, as I have just our jail in mind, but somebody from the outside to give a bigger view of what he sees within the facility, if I may. Oh, there you are, Mr. Hoover.
Hello, my name is Brad Hoover. I'm with the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. Sheriff Knudsen asked me to come and talk a little bit about the project. First and foremost, I'll just say that I'm not here to tell the board or anybody here how to spend their money. I'm not going to tell you that you either have to or shouldn't build a gym. I'm here to talk on behalf of what I see on a daily basis in my job. When the concept was first approached to me by Sheriff Knudsen about, you know, does the jail by standard need to have a gym? And by standard, it doesn't. There are many jails in my region. I cover the region from Douglas County all the way down to La Crosse to include 14 counties and 3 juvenile facilities. The standard reads, in regarding to adult jails, is that the jail shall have policies and procedures relating to recreation include the following components: identification of the recreation activities that are available, schedule of recreational activities, and when and where available, at least 1 hour of daily exercise and recreation is outside the cell or outdoors. It doesn't say anything about having a gym. And by that standard, currently the jail meets that. And if the jail didn't have a gym, That standard could be met and is met by many other jails by allowing inmates to participate in recreation outside of their cell in the day room space, library, a designated room to be a program area, recreational items to include, but aren't limited to, card games, board games, walking around in a space just to stretch out large muscle exercises, a big enough space or procedures inside the jail to allow inmates to, if they want to participate in, we see lunges, inmates doing lunges, squats in a designated area in the day room space. That's the concept of that standard, is what we want to see, is that inmates just aren't being locked into a cell and just forgotten about. That they have an opportunity to get out and stretch their legs, per se. Not to say that when this was approached to me that it was kind of, you know, I don't want to say concerning, but it was like, wait a minute, if you want to take out the gym, what is your plan in place? They already had that during their 2019 inspection. While walking through the facility and talking to staff about, you know, if the gym was to go, you know, what else are you thinking about doing? And his staff they're already thinking about it. They're talking about, you know, not only did the stuff that I just discussed about having them outside the cell and allowing them to participate in some of these activities, but also looking at certain areas within the secure perimeter of the jail that, hey, can we look at this space and see, is that a spot that we could put in a treadmill, a bicycle, you know, something else of a recreational item that would fit in there that is built for a jail, for the use of the inmates inside there, so they can use that. And I think that's fantastic. Nothing says they have to do that. That's just them going above and beyond thinking about it, which to me is great. You know, as the inspector in there, looking at how are you going to meet that standard, you know, they already have that from thinking forward. So to go back to the beginning there, is the gym absolutely necessary for the jail to meet this code? No, it is not. The procedures and the policies have to be in place though to let the inmates out of their cell in a designated space to be able to participate in a recreational type activity. All right. Any questions?
Questions? Supervisor Peterson.
Would you maybe address the issue of, and I support the sheriff's thought on this, that this area, this new area would be needed not only to protect the workers, but also some of the inmates from other inmates, that it's a safety issue.
So are you asking me, do I think that it's needed?
Well, address the issue. And,
okay. So I will say that, you know, Sheriff touched on it. Mental health crisis is on the rise. I think everybody in here is aware of that. And that we're seeing nationally, we're seeing issues throughout the jails, not just here in Wisconsin, but just across the board. And it is something that in my region is talked about quite a bit. When I hold regional jail administrator meetings every year, I hold 2 of them a year for all the jail administrators, and whoever part of the jail or the sheriff's department wants to attend can. It's a concern that gets talked about. How are they handling that inmate population? I don't have those answers for them. You know, as the inspector, I don't have the authority to come in and say you will do X, Y, and Z. But I can certainly tell you that it is a big concern.
Supervisor Peterson.
Would it be fair to say that if an inmate got in a fight or altercation with another inmate or an employee and somebody was killed, that the county would be highly liable for that, would they not?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty broad statement.
Oh.
So.
Any other questions? Supervisor Idle.
Can you just speak to what laws would kind of constrain us in terms of keeping those mental health, the individuals with mental health problems in the jail?
I'm not a lawyer. I guess I can't speak to the laws that pertain to that. So I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf and give the impression here that I'm a card-carrying member of the Bar Association by any means. So I guess I can't answer that question.
Supervisor Tatum.
Well, I think this would be a question you could answer. It's 14 counties that you oversee?
Yes.
How many of those jails have or don't have gym space?
Okay, so off the top of my head, let's see, I'm gonna go down the list here. So Douglas County does, so we say gym space or a gym? A gym. So Douglas County does, Burnett doesn't, Washburn doesn't. Coming down, Barron County does. And when we talk about a gym, it's a loose term, right? I think everybody in here perceives a gym as being something that has a basketball hoop and maybe some other stuff. That's not necessarily the case, you know, to Barron County's situation. It's just a large room that they walk around. Dunn County has one. Chippewa County does not. Eau Claire does not have a gym. Jackson County does not have a gym. Trempealeau County doesn't have a gym. I'm trying to think of La Crosse. If I can't off the top of my head remember if La Crosse does or doesn't. I want to say they do. They all start to look alike once you start going in them all the time. But so you can see, I mean, they don't all have that. They do have some form or another of a designated space. You know, especially some of the smaller jails just have, you know, a day room area space. To Eau Claire's extent, they just have a program room off the side that has some stuff in it that they can participate in. But we're not talking, you know, and I guess I won't talk about how that, because I'm not there on a daily basis to talk about how many inmates are using the gym. So,
Supervisor Mel?
There's having a gym and there's using a gym. Do your duties include examining the gym use plan from the standpoint of how many hours inmates get to use it, the list of qualifications for inmates who are using it? The reason, and while you're thinking of the answer about that, it's my understanding, but I guess my understanding is basically based on talking with our sheriff, that modern jail practice is getting away from very much use of gymnasiums as places to play basketball or group sports or that kind of thing, because it can lead to violence among the inmates. So what is your answer? What is the pattern in your 14 counties for the number of hours a week that an inmate gets to use the gym?
sure. So at a minimum, the expectation is that at least 1 hour is afforded to the inmates daily.
That's just outside of their cells.
Outside of their cell for recreation activities at 1 hour. So when I come in and do the inspections, what I'm looking to see is, one, do you have a policy and a procedure in place on for recreation, in regards to recreation? You know, how often are inmates being afforded the opportunity? So, you know, if they have a gym, I want to see how often are they being able to use the gym. That's not to say that, you know, the gym is used for 1 hour a day. Okay, that's just, you know, because let's face it, you know, if you have a small gym and you have a large jail, there's only so many hours in a day that they can occupy that. So a procedure has to be put in place to say, how can we utilize this space to the best of their ability? The biggest piece is I want to know, like, how often are they outside of their cell, being afforded the day room space, and when they're in this space, what are the activities that they're allowed to participate in? Okay, what are the, you know, the recreational space, what is the social activities that they're getting? That is the biggest piece. You know, so when it comes to the gym, I'm looking to see, you know, are they being afforded it? How often is it going to be? I want to see that, you know, they have it, but nothing is to say that, you know, if they have a gym that they have to offer the gym. It just means that they need to be afforded an hour outside of their cell for recreational time. So we do have some places that utilize classification. as an incentive tool, and they utilize the gym. You know, if you want to participate in the gym, then you medium or minimum classification. You know, as an incentive-based program to come up, you know, for good behavior to get to participate in that. But it's not my say that you have to use the gym so many hours per week, X, Y, Z.
Supervisor Fosling?
Just to clarify, and this might be a question really for Sheriff Knutson, but in the plan, is there space for treadmills or Stairmasters or similar physical activity equipment?
Yeah, we would do some, we have like a multi-purpose room right now that is used as partly a classroom, partly an AA room. That would not eliminate that room, we would just use it back to that multi-purpose and put some of those items in there.
Supervisor Motatum?
Well, kind of along those lines, I had a question about the use of gym space. Is the gym space typically used only for that open gym time, or is it used, you know, when you said you have all the volunteers that are coming in and running programs, is it also used for program space? And if it is, where would you accommodate that?
It is not used for program space. The only time actually the volunteers get in there is for the Christmas party at the end of the year, and that's what fits all of them. Other than that, all the other programs and classes are held in. We have the multi-purpose room. There's another classroom that was originally built that had some computers in there and some other things, along with the library. So we have some other rooms that we would utilize. We would not, those would not be removed out of the gym.
All right, thank you.
Whip. Supervisor Malik?
Mr. Hoover, do your duties include looking at the Huber charges? And if so, can you tell us whether these allegations by Mr. Kaczynski are true, that it's $760 a month in St. Croix and $400 in Polk, Dunn, and Pierce?
No, my job does not. I have no authority whatsoever when it comes over to the Huber charges, what counties pay, or charge, I should say, for that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. If there's no more questions, it will be. What? Yep. Supervisor Schoberg.
So this is not a question for you. This is just a question if there's a district attorney representative here that could address something. And if not, maybe is there a St. Croix County Defense Counsel here or a public defender? If I could ask you to come to the podium and ask this question, and I could ask this question of you. So the premise, the thing that I'm questioning myself is that, is this problem created because of our district attorney's policy that ends up resulting in so many people being jailed? It's nothing that the sheriff has any control over himself. But is our county, our district attorney's policies the type that more people, I mean, the jail is full. Is it full by reason of policies that are such as it's harder for someone to have a Huber sale available because of the cost? Would you, in your opinion, say this problem is created in part by the policies established by our county, specifically the district attorney's office?
Well, I would say that's true in part. The sheriff, if someone sentences a person to jail, he has to take them. He doesn't have any choice about that. You know, if a person's arrested and put on bail, he has to take them to jail. He can't do anything about that. You know, the only thing he can do, there's a statute that says he could put them on electronic monitoring. So if he felt the person was sentenced to jail and he thought he could control that person with a monitor, then he has complete authority to take those people out of the jail, put them all on electronic monitoring. But this county hasn't been in favor of electronic monitoring for years. Years ago, they had a person that ran electronic monitoring. He didn't have anything to do and he quit. So the district attorney also seems to have a policy where they don't utilize electronic monitoring. So as I said, if you go to Pierce County, when they built the new jail, they were questioning whether or not they should have a Huber section. And they decided there's not a lot of employment in Ellsworth where the jail is. So they said that would be foolish. A lot of people in jail don't have driver's license, things of that nature. There's not a lot of jobs down there. So Huber is not going to work. So instead of that, when you're in Pierce County, you either sit in jail or you're out on electronic monitoring. If you talk to La Crosse has hundreds of people out on electronic monitoring. Well, Claire has a lot of electronic monitoring. Now, so the question is, are the policies in St. Croix County about electronic monitoring, could they help the population or the increasing population in jail and be alleviated? And I think they would if they would review that policy. Now, if you talk about Huber, I think there's board members that actually okay the amount of Huber. So the sheriff by himself can't just say, I want Huber. So he goes before a board. So a year or two ago, I wrote letters to the board and I said, Huber is too much money. And I think they decreased it $10 or $15. But if you have to pay $760 a month for Huber and you're making $10 or $13 an hour and you have to have an apartment in the outside, you're not going to do it. You're just going to sit in jail and then you're going to get frustrated. It leads to various problems. But the sheriff himself cannot by himself control that, you know. So I'm just saying that's an issue that you have. So you have the Huber, the electronic monitoring. Then you have day report. You instituted day report. Well, day report means that you come to court and the judge might order a person to go to day report. And if they violate day report, then they're arrested. Well, I'm sure you all visited Eau Claire. Eau Claire doesn't have a so-called day report, but their day report program, they actually have 2 AODA counselors, alcohol and drug counselors on staff. So if there's a violation, they don't get arrested, go to jail, and lose their job. They go down to day report, and they see a counselor, and they try to figure out what's going on. At some point, if they keep violating, of course, they would be arrested. But all these things factor into what's your jail population, what's the cause of your jail population, all of those things. And me and the sheriff get along. Jailers have a tough job. Jailers are not trying to be bad people. I'm just saying that, like he said, it's a tough job. You know, I don't know that you ought to make jailers into therapists, counselors, things of that nature. And I know they have programs. I know a lot of people that are in programs. Dick Trendy, he comes into jail, used to be the chief of police. You know, he runs a program.
Thank you, John. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Could I follow up? Because surely there's a charge for this monitoring program. And if the Huber at $760 a month is keeping people out because it costs too much, wouldn't the cost for wearing a bracelet, an electronic monitoring or an anklet, wouldn't that be equally a barrier? John?
We can both answer this.
Oh, okay. Well, you can sing a duet if you like.
The electronic monitoring, they charge a fee.
Is it $25 a day?
No, I think it's 10. I think the normal Huber fee is 20, and then you add on that, it's 10, so it's 30, except on weekends, it's not implied, so it's only 20. So if you did straight monitoring, it would be cheaper, subject to who's ever monitoring it. Now, at one point, they used Justice Point out of Milwaukee. There used to be a deputy sheriff in Barron. You know, he ran a program. So I don't know if the sheriff knows if you just did electronic monitoring, what could you get if you let a substantial number of people out?
Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to figure out what the relevancy of this discussion is. If someone could help me, I'm a little bit lost.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me explain. To me, it's, should we leave this subject alone? that is raised by the public defender's office here after we build these, after we do this conversion, or should we continue to pursue this? Our jail isn't going to be big enough forever. There'll be a time when another county board will have to look at an expansion of that jail. But before we expand it yet again, we need to do everything we can to maximize the use of the space we have. And I think I was here when we spent a whole lot of money to build a Huber facility, and now we aren't using it. We seem to be pricing ourselves out of being able to use it if these numbers are to be believed. Other people around us are using electronic monitoring. Why aren't we? It seems to me that there's more involved than just jail space. It has to do with people being able to keep their jobs while their cases are being decided, while they're still presumed to be innocent, you know. Being able to pay their child support, a lot of things that just being in jail interrupts in a way that isn't always optimal. That's why it's relevant to me.
So this time we've had a lot of discussion on it. And we have a motion and a second on the floor. I see Dan. But I'm wondering if we have to have any more discussion or if we can just vote on this at this time. So, yep. Go ahead, Jim.
I think the sheriff was going to show a video.
Sheriff?
Yes,
Okay,
but
go ahead.
If I may, I'll get to that. So this will be an 8-minute or so video, and I'll kind of commentate as we go through it. Each one of these individuals that are in these films or in these videos are those that would more than likely have been or were going to be put into in the area for special needs. You know, in this one here, we have a gentleman that had stripped down in crisis of some form. He ended up going to Winnebago. Another individual, this really kind of encompasses, you know, attempts to even handle, move inmates throughout the facility. We have limited staff on. When I say limited, during the day, we have 4 on the floor on a minimum staffing. At nights, we have 3 on the floor, minimum staffing. Sometimes we have a few more than that. Right there is everybody from the facility there. So when these incidences occur, in essence, it shuts down the rest of the facility. If it's a large enough incident in a certain area, we have to lock the other inmates down as we go about attempting to de-escalate control. We have a restraint chair for those that are a little more difficult to manage. And once that person, the chair is not used that often, but when it is, that inmate needs to be monitored consistently. There's paperwork that then happens, monitoring them for any circulation, make sure the cuffs aren't too tight. Rarely are they in there for very long, but it gets them back down to a center. This was a video that I believe had been out potentially on the Rivertowns site, and seems to be one that has garnered at least some attention. This inmate did about $3,000 worth of damage. In 2016, in the adjacent day room, he did the same thing to the tune of about $2,800. This is one of our receiving cells. And this is the largest of the 3 receiving cells where we're currently housing inmates that are suicidal, are in some form of crisis, are potentially ill, detoxing, maybe have MRSA, hepatitis. Sometimes when all those different ailments come together with different people, we run out of space. As is often the case right now, we are out of space. This gentleman here in receiving, because of his demeanor, and we believe that we could not control him in the courtroom, Judge Needham brought his staff down and had to hold the hearing down here. If in fact that person was up in the courtroom, we obviously would have had a fight on our hands. He talked about other inmate safety. I broke his nose. There had been no disturbance or dispute between the two prior to that. He just felt that was the time that he'd had enough. And we're trying to lock the facility down at that time. That's during meals. So half the facility that day didn't probably get as hot a meal as they had originally planned. This was actually our jail doctor. We've got it noted as a jail nurse, but jail doctor, I've mentioned this. And we thought we would bring her to him because we were afraid that if we moved him to her, we would have a fight such as this before we ever got to the medical office. And the damage and downtime is costly. It does disrupt the workings of the jail. Certain instances, it will set off alarms. If the jailers don't get to the control panel in time, it will set off an alarm in the government center, which then disrupts court, which happened a couple weeks ago. Not from an incident like this, but from an incident in the jail, and court had to be vacated as well. Shuts the building down. We have this one on the end. This will be the final video. When tempers flare in some of these other areas, separation to other areas of the jail are very difficult. So now to separate these guys, we don't have a lot of places to put them. All our other lockdown blocks are filled with special needs. Our receiving cells are full of special needs. And it makes for a very difficult decision on who's placed where, if there's no contacts, if there's classification issues. It's a juggling act for the jail staff. And here's our new body cam system.
Lock down!
That was the video that I had shown to Public Protection, CJCC. is the same one I showed tonight, so. I know you guys want to get to this. This is going to be a long-term resource, not a short-term fix. For the staff's sake, for the inmates' sake, who are also county residents. I want you guys to make a educated decision. I'm a taxpayer as well. I don't want you to recklessly vote on millions of dollars, but I hope that we've shown that there is a need for this, that is imperative that we address it, and for the longevity of the staff that I currently have.
Supervisor Hanson, you had something to say?
There's no question that these things are happening in the jail. The fact is they're putting too many people in jail. The answer to that is to put fewer people in jail. This isn't your doing, Scott, and it's unfortunate that it's a situation there. We've got a district attorney who's just putting too many people in jail. We need is jail reform. The only leverage this body has regarding jail reform is the checkbook. We need to slow this process down, and that's what I've been saying now for 2 months. We put this $8 or whatever million into this project, we're done, we're out of it, we have nothing left to say. We have an opportunity to construct real social reform, real jail reform, involve health and human services, help people with mental illness instead of just put them in solitary confinement, and continue to pack the jail as tight as we can. And in 6, 7, or 8 years, we're going to end up spending $80 or $100 million on a new pod. Doesn't make a spit of sense to me. I'd vote no for this thing, and then we can regroup and come up with a common sense community solution to this problem.
Any other questions? Supervisor Coulter?
We just heard tonight that there's $1 million we saved on the highway building. I'm not clear if the $700,000 for the salt shed is in that total or not. We've got some other pockets of resources that I'd like to see delineated in terms of what we saved on spending last year, surpluses, so that we can reduce the borrowing amount. I'm supportive of doing this jail remodel to help the situation for the moment, but I'm not satisfied that we need to, I'm not persuaded that we need to borrow all the money, and I'd like to see that accounting. Now, I just heard tonight that our audit just got done. I mean, the news isn't all good. We have an over $800,000 budget deficit in HHS for 2018. But I'd like to see it all. So we're making an $8 million decision. I'd like to see the total scope of the county's fiscal situation before we pull the trigger on this. So I'm not going to vote for this tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Peterson?
I, for one, don't want to err on the side of delaying this project any longer. I will support it.
Supervisor Malik?
I get to the same place Mr. Coulter does, I think, but for different reasons. And I am not convinced that the issues on the blue paper that we were given tonight will be addressed in a serious fashion if we simply vote to approve this, the money for the conversion. I came in here wanting to vote for the conversion, and I think that there's little doubt I'll ultimately do that. But I would like to see within the next month a serious proposal for addressing the possibilities that seem to be provided here, not just because of their implications for jail population and overcrowding types of issues, but the bigger issues about the way we treat our prisoners. So I could readily support a 1-month delay if it would result in laying out the financial situation to see if there is a possibility to borrow less, which is what I understand Supervisor Coulter to be saying, and if the Public Protection Committee would outline a strategy for addressing the possibilities on the blue papers, blue pages, the blue paper.
I'm changing my mind. I voted against this. The other 2 times it's come up. This is the 3rd month. How many months do you need to get information? It can get kept pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. This is going to take care of a problem that's immediate, and that I may be biased, but I don't know if I would want some of these prisoners out on electronic bracelet. Because they could do a lot of harm before a cop got there, especially in the eastern part of St. Croix County. It's not like Hudson, where a cop can get over there in 5 minutes. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And that for the safety and benefit of both the employees and the people who are in jail, I have changed my mind, and I think this is something good, because if we do have to enlarge the jail, this will not inhibit it. That's what I was informed. And so it can still grow, and this can be utilized, and it's going to be beneficial right now. And yes, we have to borrow money, but if we were going to pay for 3 more therapists and 2 AODA counselors every year, you're looking at $250,000 that we would have to add to the budget every year in order to take care of this. And that, we don't have it. So in my mind, this is a solution now that is the most appropriate solution. It might not be the best, but we've had a lot of time to look at it. We can keep pushing it down the road more and more every month, but you know, at some point you have to say, okay, this is it. We have to make a decision. And that's what we're here for.
Mr. Chairman, I just,
Supervisor Schoberg.
I want to kind of fill something in that, for Supervisor Malik, if I may. We are in talks with some of the drug court procedures as well on getting some of those folks out on electronic monitoring. I'm considering some Huber inmates being out on electronic monitoring, which will alleviate some of that stress and some of those fees for some of those that may not be able to afford it. Again, while they're still out, other counties have people out on electronic monitoring. I'm not sure what their actual monitoring of them is. That's always my concern. Number one, that the process is being followed on their sentence being carried out as the judges have given down to me. But I also need to make sure that if they're out on these electronic monitorings, that the community is safe as well. Those electronic monitorings that I'm considering in this project that we're talking about, those special needs cells and those that are going in there would not be eligible for anything to do with Huber, anything to do with electronic monitoring. And I wouldn't put them out in the public, and I wouldn't expect the public to expect me to put them out. So I think they're 2 very different things. And I can appreciate your views on that. And I can appreciate Mr. Hanson, Supervisor Hanson as well. But I'm running out of healthy staff, and to stand on a hill and say that this is our line, I have nobody to work. I lost 4 in 20 days. I can't lose any more to injury.
Supervisor Schoberg.
This is a very difficult decision for me. I know that we have 2 big issues that we're facing. One is a crisis for your employees and for those that are suffering from this mental illness crisis. And the other is, I think our system needs to be reworked, because I think we are too full. I think that all has to be evaluated. That's going to take time. We're not going to get that done in a month. But I think we should have some real comprehensive review of our policies and see whether or not there's a better way to lessen the others that are in the jail, that aren't in the fights, and maybe they can be released with other terms. But I'm persuaded to vote in favor of this bonding because of the crisis and the turmoil it's causing your department. And not all the $8 million is spent on this. A bunch of it is fixing up our HVAC system too. But as far as, are you ready to vote for this on the $8 million? It's a bond, it's low interest rate. The $1 million that might float in from the other will pay off other bonds. So it's not as if we should only borrow $7 million. It's how much is outstanding altogether. So if we save $1 million, like we've discussed before, we'll figure out which other bonds are at the higher interest rates and we'll pay those off. That's even smarter than not borrowing this cheaper money now. Interest rates have just dropped. So I'd say we act now. Even though my heart is with Dan Hansen and Tammy and others, I just am moved by the crisis of the circumstance. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor, and well, then you have to wait for a minute, because Mr. Hansen's first. Ms. Tatum?
Well, I have a question. How soon would you anticipate the jail cells, the modified jail cells to be ready and available for people to be occupying?
I'd have to probably defer to Klein McCarthy. Our original plan was if this had passed through on the first round, that we would be starting at September, October. This would be during the winter months, and we'd have more contractors, I believe, to come in and help.
It'd be within a year.
Within a year. Within a year.
Okay. Now, we have a motion and a second on the floor. I think we'll act on that at this time and move forward and vote. Thank you, everyone. And this will take 14 votes to pass it, so everybody's aware of that. Thank you. So it passes. There's 3 no votes, the rest are yes. So that is a passing for this bond to move forward for the jail. So thank you, everyone. We will move on with our business items. We have number 3 here, Budget Amendment 2019-2.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Based on the prior action of the board, this resolution is required to amend the budget to incorporate the $8,025,000 of bonding. So it's a budget amendment resolution. It's perfunctory. It's required to make sure that the account numbers are lined up correctly. There is one change. When the board takes action on this item, there should be a motion, I would suggest from maybe the chair of the administration committee, to amend the resolution to $8,025,000 rather than the 8.4 that's in the resolution. That was the dollar amount that included the amount for the emergency communication vehicle. Okay. So when the board takes this up, I would ask that a motion be made to amend the resolution to include the new dollar amount, $8,025,000, rather than the 8.4 that's in there. Thank you.
Okay. Point of order, don't we
So
also have to?
I need a motion
I'm sorry.
first for the original budget amendment, and then we'll go for a first, second, Supervisor Solberg. Now, the amendment. Supervisor Peterson.
I would move that we amend the resolution to the figure of $8,025,000 as suggested by the administrator.
Do I have a second? Supervisor Solberg, second that. Is there any discussion on that amendment?
Does that pass the finance what you wanted to accomplish, Ken?
The only other thing was the comm van was still in there. You can draw a line through the comm van. Otherwise, I'll buy that also.
Okay, I thought we took care of that by amending the dollar amount, but,
Yeah, the resolution lists both the revenue and the expense.
okay.
So
Excellent, thank you. Good catch.
Any discussion on that amendment? So we have a motion and a second to amend. We'll vote on the amendment to bring it down to $8,025,000.
Yeah, I mean.
Ready to vote? Yep. Ready to vote. It's not working. What? On the amendment. Let's go on. Two yeses and abstained, and that passes. So now we're back to the original motion on the budget amendment 2019 for the $8,025,000. And we have a motion and a second on the floor. We can vote on that at this time then. And that also passes, so we'll move forward with that one too. Now we'll move down to number 4 on the list. Thank you. We got a resolution adopting update comprehensive grid plan. Everybody has that in their package. I need a motion from Supervisor Peterson. I have a second. Supervisor Motadom. Is there any discussion on that grid update?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a resolution from the Administration Committee. The County Board of Supervisors authorized an update to the existing wage grid. We contracted with Dr. Victoria McGrath, who completed the original 2015 wage grid. And what you have in front of you is a resolution which will authorize the updated wage grid that Dr. McGrath has completed and presented to the Administration Committee. The implementation costs, if approved by the board, is approximately $200,000, and this will adjust 27 positions on the existing wage grid, approximately 150 employees. And the Administration Committee has went through this with Dr. McGrath and is recommending approval. If approved, I will incorporate the fiscal impact of this in the 2020 budget.
Any questions? That grid update? If not, we're motion to second on the floor. We'll vote on that at this time. And that's all yeses. So that passes. Thank you. The next item is a resolution establishing library funds for 2020 in the amount of $1,122,941. Supervisor Peterson, the motion. Do I have a second? Supervisor Schoberg. Discussion on that. Supervisor Coulter.
Yeah, I'd have to oppose this because we're unfairly treating the Hudson Library, one of our most efficient libraries in the county and one of our largest, and I don't know why they should be singled out for different treatment than the other libraries, so I'm going to oppose this.
Any other discussion? Supervisor Octorov.
Yeah, I'm going to do a brief reason why we do this for people who may not know. Originally, when Hudson became a joint library, they signed a legal agreement saying that they would reimburse surrounding libraries for patrons in their district using other libraries, which they did for many, and that was also one of the reasons that the county approved them being able to form a joint library. Several years ago, there must have been a loophole or whatnot, and they stopped paying the surrounding communities, which really affected some of them to probably $30,000 to $50,000. And this is what we are doing now, because that the difference between the 70% and the 100%, that 30% is being dispersed proportionally to the surrounding libraries where they would have gotten even more from Hudson. So by not doing this, Hudson gets, one, they get to keep the money that they should have been paying the other area libraries. Two, they get 100%. And the other libraries get the 100%, but they don't get any of what they are owed from patrons from the joint library using their libraries. Hopefully I'm explaining this right. By doing it at the 70 and the 100, you have about 8 libraries that are hurt somewhat. By doing it with everybody 100, you have one particular library that's getting paid double what they should compared to their original legal agreement that they had in forming the joint library in the first place. So I think that this is a good compromise until we can figure out how to handle the situation so that this doesn't keep coming up every year.
Supervisor Peters.
I stated on several occasions that if the Hudson Library Commission feels that they are being treated unfairly, that they have every right to revert back to the county.
Any other discussion? Not seeing any other discussion. Supervisor Schoberg.
Just wanted to say the administration committee reviewed this as we do every year, and it passed unanimously.
Okay.
So throughout the county, it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Not seeing any other discussion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll vote on this. And that passes. There's 2 no votes and abstains, so that's 3, so that's okay. We'll move on to our next. It's a resolution updating personnel policy manual, PTO donation policy. Is that Supervisor Peterson, motion, second? Supervisor Tatum. Discussion. No discussion? All in favor? Then we'll vote on this. And that passes unanimous. Thank you. Our last business item, resolution establishing county administrator goals, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Supervisor Peterson, second. Supervisor Tatum. Discussion.
Quickly, these goals are established based on the initiatives that the board had approved at a prior meeting. And the administrator and staff presented these to the administration committee. I won't go through them. You can read them.
Yep.
But the committee approved all goals, and it becomes part of already the current year's evaluation period. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Not seeing any. There's a motion and second on the floor. We'll vote. Baby. I think my battery died. Won't take it.
Just pick it up and throw it at the screen.
I did. Doesn't like me. Is the battery dead? I can't, it won't work.
Here, use this.
What?
I guess we'll be here all night.
Can you write it? Can you do it the old-fashioned way? Okay.
I need a new battery.
I think it's.
Yeah, let's do a voice vote.
Battery. Let's see if this does.
Roger?
What?
Do a voice vote.
Yes.
All those in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. See? Just like the good old days.
Okay. Done. Request for future agenda items. Supervisor Hodge.
This is something that probably won't come up till February, March, and I'm just throwing this out for people to think about between now and then. But this is the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors on the east side, on the west side of the county. Over on the east side of the county, for about 5 days, we have the St. Croix County Fair. That fair is run through a huge amount of volunteerism. In fact, they're getting their numbers together so when they do their report to the county board, you'll have some idea of how many volunteer hours are needed to run the fair. And there's even more now because Extension's pulling out. And I would love to see in the bylaws or something like that where every county supervisor has to volunteer a minimum of 4 hours at the fair every year. And if they can't do it one year, do it 8 hours the next year. It's something, food for thought, but it's something that's important, and that's why I brought it up. So.
I would like to have a discussion on the, what I've learned following up with John Deppies and the Community Development Department. I'd like to make that an item, please.
Okay.
I would like to have a discussion on the Community Development Department, specifically the comments that John Deppies made during the meeting and also during a visit I had with him. Thank you.
Any others? Supervisor Peterson?
I'd like to encourage my fellow supervisors to make an effort to attend that open house the 21st for the highway facility. I think you need to see what all the support we had and the committee that put this together and the money that we will probably be saving in the future. And I'd encourage your constituents also to have a look at it. I think it's going to be a facility to be proud of. Oh, and there's a wonderful mural in there too that is just fantastic. It's You'll love it.
Anything else? Well, I'm getting to that. The county clerk's report and correspondence.
Sure. If you didn't pick up your mail in the last month, you would have received a few of these books. If you don't want these books, just leave them on your desk. I'll pick them up because I'll distribute them to other departments. They only gave us a limited supply, and so if you don't want them, Over the Green Book's a pretty good book, but just to let you know. And then I did register those who expressed interest in attending the WCA annual conference for September. If you're still interested, just let me know. The rate is a little bit higher, but just let me know if you want to go. That's it.
Thank you. Any other announcements anybody has?
No.
Supervisor Miller.
Former Public Protection Chair Andy Brinkman wants to invite all the county supervisors to the St. Croix County Sheriff's Department Canine Golf Scramble fundraiser. This year's tournament will be held on Sunday, August 25th at noon at Pheasant Hills Golf Course in Hammond. And you can contact Andy Brinkman or me if you want further details.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, is there another?
Yeah.
Yeah, couple things. The administration committee is not going to meet on August 19th. Instead, they're going to be meeting on Monday, August 12th at 8 a.m. in the morning prior to the committee of the whole meeting for a short agenda. Secondly, a member of the board asked me to remind board members that if you are appointed to a committee, standing committee, or one of the various commissions and committees, if you are a sitting member, make sure you attend those meetings, and if you can't, if you're going to miss a meeting, contact that committee chair or the county board chair to let them know in advance that you're not going to be able to attend a meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Jim?
One quick announcement. Today was Dan Enlow, who's our custodian, who sets this room up for all the board meetings. Today was his 20-year anniversary.
Okay.
So Dan's heart is bigger than the room, so thanks to Dan.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.